So far, we have discussed in chapter 11 conic sections. We have seen the circle, we have seen ellipse and parabola. Today we are going to see the hyperbola. Hyperbola is set of all points in a plane. Here, in the case of ellipse, we saw that it was the addition. Here the key is the subtraction. So the distance of any point from f1 and f2, these two are focuses or foci. So the difference of the larger distance from the smaller distance will always remain constant. You take any point, may it be p1 f2 minus p1 f1, that will always be equal to say p2 f2 minus p2 f1. Remember, we are subtracting the smaller side from the larger side. So the difference is the key, and here there are two axes. First is the line which is passing through the foci f1 and f2. We are calling it as a transverse axis, and the other axis, or you can say a line which is passing through the center and which is perpendicular to this transverse axis, we are calling it as a conjugate axis. Conjugate axis. And now this hyperbola, where it intersects with the transverse axis, we are calling these are vertex. So we are calling them as a vertices. And we denote the distance between two foci by this is C, this is C. So the distance between two foci is 2c. And as we saw in the ellipse also, the equation lies b square is equal to c square minus a square. And this 2b, first of all, let us take this. This is a, this is again a. So the distance from this point to this point, this point to this point, this a to b is 2a, 2a. And this one is here b. We'll see all of this. First you have to remember that the difference of the larger side from the smaller side on any point of the hyperbola from the focus will always remain constant, and that will be equal to 2a, as we saw in the ellipse. As I suggested there also, that these two are quite similar. What about eccentricity? Eccentricity, just like ellipse, it will be E is equal to c by a. This will be the eccentricity. And since this c is greater than or equal to a, as we just saw in the diagram, c is greater than a. So the eccentricity will never be less than 1. We'll see the standard equation of hyperbola. If I just substitute minus with plus, you will recall that this was the equation of our ellipse. Now the equation of hyperbola has a negative sign. X square by a square minus y square by b square equal to 1. And the faces totally depends on which axis is a transverse, which axis is the conjugate axis. So this is, let us take this as 0, 0. And we are aware that this will be at a distance of a, this will be equal distance minus a on the negative x-axis. From the first focus will be at c0, the second focus will be minus c0. And if we invert it, means if we take the transverse axis as the y-axis now, so the focus lie here and the vertices will lie here, and now the x-axis here, x point will be 0 and y will take these values, a minus a and c and minus c, and the equation would become y square by a square minus x square by b square. Now the question arises, let us derive. Derivation is very important, because only after derivation we will be able to understand, or by the course of the satisfaction this derivation, we will understand what exactly hyperbola is. And we have known the definition of hyperbola is the difference of the point, any point from focus 1 to focus 2, the difference, that is pf1 minus pf2, will always be a constant, that will be 2a. And since this is minus c0, this is c0, let us take the distance formula. It is quite simple. This distance has to be subtracted from this distance. Let us take it. The first distance is this, and I'm sure that you are aware of the distance formula. Just subtract it and just rearrange it, you will get this equation. And when you further simplify it, you see that you will come up to c square minus a square on the denominator, and we know that c square minus a square is equal to b square. So x square by a square minus y square by b square will be equal to 1. So this is the equation of hyperbola you have to remember. Now let us see the converse. So we'll write this equation in this form: y square is equal to b square x square minus a square by a square. Let us find pf1, pf2. pf1 is this. Let us replace y square by this whole, and we see it will be a plus c by ax. Again for pf2 also, if we solve like this, it will get a minus a by cc, and let us subtract them and you will get 2a. You'll see that you'll get exactly 2a. Okay, and it totally depends on which axis your hyperbola is the equation, because this equation is when the transfer axis is x-axis. This equation is when the transverse axis is your y-axis. If at any case a equal to b, then you will say that this hyperbola is an equilateral hyperbola. So from this discussion, let us observe one more thing. Let us rearrange the equation. You see that something is added to 1. So this x square by a square will always be greater than 1. So x by a is always greater than equal to 1. That means x would always be less than equal to minus a and greater than a. In the opposite case, the ellipse was in between minus a and a. X was in between a and minus a. But in hyperbola, x would be outside minus a, including minus a, and outside a. There will be nothing in between. Right? So these are the standard equations of the hyperbolas. We need to observe some more thing, that hyperbola, just like ellipse, is symmetric, whether it be xy, minus xy, x minus y, or minus x minus y. So it is symmetric. Hyperbola is symmetric. And also the focus or the foci, will always be on the transverse axis. Will always be on the transverse axis. So just take this example. See, this is giving you a length, has a transverse axis along x-axis of length 6, while this is going to give you a transverse axis along y-axis of length 10, right? Latest rectum will always be 2b square by a. Similar discussion as we did in ellipse. So let us take an example so that you understand what we have just learned. That will be more clear. Find the coordinate of the foci and the vertices, the eccentricity, the length of the latest rectum of hyperbolas. So x square by 9 minus y square by 16 equal to 1. How you are going to do this? Let us compare this with the standard equation. A square is 9, b square is 16, so you get c, under root a square plus b square, that will be 5. And the coordinate of the foci will be plus minus 5, 0, that will be plus minus c, 0, and vertices would be plus minus a, 0. And also the eccentricity would be c by a, that will be 5 by 3. And the latest rectum would be 2b square by a. You just place the value, you will get 32 by 3. Now this one is we have to just make it in the form we are aware. So let us make it like this: y square by 16 minus x square by 1 equal to 1. What we have done here is we have divided everything by 16. Okay, so now y square by a square minus x square by b square equal to 1. Let us compare it with this. A square is 16, b square is 1. So a is 4, b is 1, c can be computed by under root a square plus b square, that will be under root 17. Now since this is showing that the axis is your transverse axis, is your y axis. So x will be 0, but y will be plus minus 17. This we have taken c, and a 0 plus minus 4. And eccentricity would be e is equal to c by a, that is under root 17 by 4. And the latest rectum would be 2b square by a square equal to half. Next is find the equation of the hyperbola. Foci is given and vertices are like this. And since it is given the y has some value, So the focus is on the y-axis. So we are going to compare it with the y square by a square minus x square by b square equal to 1. So the vertices would be 0 plus minus n1 by 2. So this is what? This is a. And what this is what? This is what? This is nothing but your c equal to 3. A is this, c is 3. You can find out b. B square is equal to c square minus a square. That will be 25 by 4. Now you have known a, you have known b. Just place it in this equation, you will get this. And rearrange it so that the equation looks like an equation. Next question is, find the equation of the hyperbola whose foci are this and length of latest rectum is 36. Since we are provided with the focus, we know that this is 0, c. So c is 12. Also, the latest rectum is 36. That is 2b square by a is 36. That means we are aware that b square is 18a. Now, we know that c square is equal to a square plus b square. Let us place this value c and 18a here and solve this for a. A gets minus 24 and 6 if we solve it. A cannot be negative, so we take a equal to 6, and for this we get b square is equal to 18 into 6, that will be your 108. And this will be your equation if you place it in the y square by a square minus x square by b square is equal to 1. And this is the normal form. So this was about the hyperbola. We'll be taking the miscellaneous example and summary in the next session. Thank you so much.